Not only is winter coming, but parts of Germany are locking down again, which probably means that I'm not going anywhere for the next few months at least. So let me instead take the opportunity to talk about something completely different that has nothing to do with Germany. Camera shake. A few of you have left comments on some of my recent videos saying that you found the camera shake a bit distracting. Some of you have even given me some helpful tips and advice. I'll get to that in a moment. But first, why the camera shake at all? Well, here's my camera. Oh no, I'm using it. Just a moment, I know what to do here. Let me just grab a quick picture. There we go, that should do it. That is a photo of my camera, and as you can see, it's pretty big. Now, some of you may be wondering at this point, why don't just use a phone or a DSLR? Okay, so here's a list of some of the things that my camera has that most phones don't. A lens hood, optical zoom, manual settings for everything, optical image stabilization, a big sensor, a viewfinder, the ability to attach a filter or a wide-angle lens, and a cold shoe mount that I'm using right now for the receiver for my radio mic. And why not a DSLR? Well, mostly because a DSLR is primarily a camera for stills that can also record video. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, and in fact, even for shooting video, DSLRs do have some advantages, but they also have some drawbacks. What I like about my camera is that all of the important functions are available as buttons and switches without having to go through complicated menus. And this is especially true of the audio settings. In fact, my camera also has 2 XLR inputs, which means that I can use the best professional quality microphones. Or I could if I could afford them. Now, these are all reasons that I originally chose this camera, but I have since discovered that it can also open some unexpected doors for me because it makes it look as if I know what I'm doing. I have even been given press packs. Oh no, I'm not press, I'm just an ordinary YouTuber. Oh really? Oh, well, have a press pack anyway. Now, with a camera like this, and especially when you are zoomed in, it is inevitable that any handheld shot is going to move around quite a bit, even with optical image stabilization enabled. And while there are ways of eliminating or at least reducing this camera movement, they are often expensive, time-consuming, or just massively inconvenient. Over the last few months, I've been experimenting with my videos, and one of the experiments that I've been running is how much camera shake can I get away with? Because shaky footage isn't necessarily bad, it's whether people are bothered by it that counts. Well, some of you are bothered enough to comment on it, which is bad, but it's not many of you, which is good. I think what this means is that I should actually make an effort, but I don't need to be obsessive about it. So what are the options? Well, let's begin with the obvious, a tripod. Okay, so here is a video tripod, and as you can see, it's quite big and heavy. Now, I do have lighter tripods, but they won't let me pan and tilt smoothly, which is what I really need. I'm using one now because I just need the camera fixed in one position, but it's not much good for anything else. There are a lot of problems with a video tripod. As you've seen, it's quite heavy. And the thing is, on a typical shoot, I spend most of the day walking around. It's not like I turn up somewhere, I set up, I shoot, and then I pack up and go home again. No. I arrive, I set up, I shoot, I then move maybe a few meters, set up again, get another shot, and keep going from place to place, from one street to the next, and I do that for most of the day. Sometimes I don't even have time for lunch. Also, a video tripod is big. I'm very often somewhere where I simply don't have room to set up a tripod, or there are too many people around, or I'm somewhere where I would need an expensive permit. So, how about a gimbal? Well, I have a big camera, so I would need a big gimbal, which would therefore be not only expensive, but also very heavy. It has to support the camera, and it has motors and a battery. It may not be as heavy as that tripod, but I still wouldn't want to carry it around with me all day. And a gimbal can slow you down. It has to be exactly calibrated for the camera. If I say take off the lens hood and put on a wide-angle lens, I have to recalibrate the gimbal, and then I have to recalibrate it again when I take off the wide-angle lens and put the lens hood back on. So those aren't really good options for me, but what I do have is this. Now this is a monopod, and while it's nowhere near as stable as a tripod, it is so much more convenient. It doesn't completely stop the camera from moving, but it does help quite a bit. So how about stabilizing the footage at the editing stage? Well, for editing I use Premiere Pro, and that has a feature called Warp Stabilizer, and it really is excellent. In fact, I've used it quite extensively in the past, and most of you probably didn't notice. However, it also has a lot of disadvantages, and it doesn't always work well, or even at all. Take this piece of footage, for example. Seems perfectly simple. Why don't I run that through Warp Stabilizer? Well, this is the result. Now, the reason that it's doing this is that it's confused by the people walking in front of the camera. This is a piece of software. It is not attached to a human brain. It analyzes the footage not as images that it can understand, but as numbers that it can perform calculations on. It does those calculations and produces a result, and that's all there is to it. Here's a much more subtle example. Stabilize this and it looks weird. This is happening because, as good as software image stabilization is, it cannot possibly correct for parallax. The foreground and the background are moving slightly differently. That's what parallax is. And so software image stabilization can stabilize one or the other, but not both. Also, software stabilization can take time. Now, I shoot in 4K, so the stabilizer has quite a bit of data to analyze. It can take several minutes to stabilize just a few seconds of video. And if after that it doesn't look good, well, then I have to tweak a few settings and try again. So that's the reason for the shaky footage that some of you have been commenting on of late. I've been testing to see whether I really need to use my monopod and Warp Stabilizer, and the answer seems to be, yeah, it might be a good idea. So, good to know. Now, I can't promise perfectly smooth footage all of the time, but I'm not Tom Scott. And before you say, oh, but Tom Scott is just an independent YouTuber exactly like you are, no, actually, Tom Scott is a proper professional with access to far more resources than I have. Anyway, I just wanted to give you a little insight into my video making process and answer a few of your questions. Thank you for your comments, and thank you for making it to the end of this video. I'll get to that in a moment, but first, somebody's just started up a blooming circular saw.